So the focus of the project is going to be learning a bit more about how to take photos, thinking about how to use the manual settings, capturing objects in motion so that you can do you have a writing instrument? Pen or a pencil? Okay, good job. Well done. Okay. And so it's going to require a little more thought and a little bit more various pieces of equipment. And so that's going to be the focus today is getting an idea of what equipment you're going to use and how to use it, and then how to think about taking the pictures of the various objects in various settings that we're going to have for you. Why? No, we'll get another page. Yeah. Get on the canvas. Okay. So the description, the emphasis will be using manual settings. And then we're going to look at different types of equipment. And this is where the notes come in. Oh, good job. Okay. So again, what I write down on the board, I want you to write in your journal. And if there's anything else that is shared or said that you feel will be helpful for you in understanding what we're talking about, feel free to add that to your notes. So equipment. Okay. Wow, this is going to be interesting. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is tripods. Okay. Does anybody know what a tripod is? Yes? It's a stand with 3 legs, then the camera goes on top. Very good. Does anybody know what a monopod is? A monopod. It's the same idea. It will hold a camera on the top, and then it will, but it will only be a single leg. So it doesn't stand unless you're balancing stuff. Even then, that's a bad idea. But the monopod, I actually have a tripod that has a pole in the middle that I can take out and use it as a monopod. And it's really nice when you're at different athletic events and you got to run around to get different positions to capture different athletes doing their stuff, because it's easier to grab just a single pole and go from one to the other rather than a tripod, which tends to be, as you can see, a little bit more daunting. So this one has 4 sections to telescopic leg. And this is kind of nice because you can get pretty high. The camera can get pretty high. As tall as me. And then many tripods have a little pole in the middle, and then we can extend it even higher depending on what you're taking a picture of. You mean if I had the camera up there, could I see through it? Yeah, I have to put a little SD screen, but yeah. You're cruel. Yeah. Everybody is a comedian. Oh, thanks, Cassidy. Appreciate that. So the tripod can be, as you can tell, at least I hope, adjusted to different heights. Don't hit people. And you need to be taking notes. What? You don't know where you live? Okay, so. Okay. So depending on how collapsed or extended the legs are, depends on how high the camera can be from the ground level or the table level or wherever you're at. So now there's a problem. I rarely extend the legs completely. Anybody want to tell me why that's a good idea? Well, besides the fact that I'm shorter than the tripod is right now, which is true, but I can release the LCD screen and turn it so that if the camera's really high, I can still see what the camera sees. So, neener, neener, neener. Okay? What were you going to say? Thank you. Very true. So, as the legs are extended more, they become thinner, and the tripod is less stable. Right? And people clumsy like me, I have an easier time tripping over these legs that are extended. And if that happens and the tripod falls and the camera at the top has a further distance to go and can be damaged. So it's only in very particular situations that I'll extend it this high. Right? Now, with tripods, there's this part that comes off. It's called a plate. We're going to do a drawing in a minute. But you can see it has a tiny silver screw and a little pin. And I'm wondering if anybody knows why there's both the screw and a pin in the plate. So there's a screw and a pin in the plate. And then hold the bottom and say, hold that thought, I'll come to you.
Oh, wow, very nice.
Yes, but why is there both a screw and a... What are you doing, young lady? Okay. Yeah, okay, so Annika thinks she knows. You know what's so?
So you can align it better?
Yes, you can align it better, yes. Kind of. So, girls, you seriously have to stop chatting. Thank you. Okay, so in video cameras, there's a hole that the screw goes into to secure the camera to the plate. And then there's a little pin because it helps you to ensure two things. One, that the camera's facing in the right direction, and two, the camera doesn't start to jiggle and move around so much. So it helps to stabilize the camera, the video camera. Now, mirrorless cameras and DSLR cameras don't have a extra little pinhole because they're not video cameras. They're more still cameras, but nonetheless, it still fits on. And, you know, it seems kind of obvious, but you got to say things out loud. The lens is going to go in the opposite direction of the handle. So where's my handle? I have just to come down a little bit. Okay, so we bring this down. And then the plate will slide into the top of the tripod. Now, different tripods have different things. Some of them, I have one that you just slide the plate in, and that clip will slip around and clasp the plate, and you have to be careful because it really hurts your thumb if it hits that. Okay. Now, you can see, too, that if I loosen the handle, I can make the camera go on the x-axis or the y-axis. Now, this particular tripod has a design flaw. As you go around 360, it actually loosens this from the stand. I don't know why they do that. That's a bad idea. This is a bad idea because the camera will eventually fall off. Now, this one also has the ability for the plate to be turned vertical so that you have a portrait orientation. Not all tripods do that, but this one does, okay? Which is really kind of cool. And then this tripod in the pouch also has, you can put this on the plate instead of the camera. Does anybody know what this is for? Yay, it took my other class like 5 minutes to figure that out. Because your smartphone cameras are really good cameras. And so this is a way to, you know, use your camera phone, your smartphone camera in a different way. Okay, so let's take some notes on the tripod. We'll put this over here for right now. Try not to trip over it. Okay, so my tripod has 3 legs. And then the stand here, and then the plate, which if I want to make a little drawing of it there and make a little drawing of it this way. So I have the screw and I have the pin. Now, many tripod legs are telescoping legs, which means they extend out and extend back. Okay. Some of those, you can get really tiny tripods, and they don't extend very much because they're really made for tabletops. Okay. So we have 3 legs. Whoops, sorry about that. And this is, all of this is the plate. And you want to connect the camera to the plate, then the plate to the tripod. Okay. And it seems obvious, but you really have to think about steps because, you know, you're handling a camera. And these cameras are about $800, $900 a piece. And so that's a lot of money to drop. And so you just want to be careful with your equipment. It's just a good idea, right, to be able to do that. And that way you'll be able to secure that. Okay. Let's see. The other, oh, wait a second. There we go. So then we have lighting. I'm familiar with it because of our previous project. Lighting, photo and lighting, right? There are 2 general types of light available to photographers. Anybody know either of? You saw that, didn't you? You saw it. So there's natural light, and today's kind of a cool day for natural light, and then there's artificial light. Okay? Now, natural is, you know, what we see walking around planet Earth on any particular day, or night, right? Yes, there is time when natural light does happen at nighttime. Okay. What's the advantage to natural light? Is it a good thing? Besides the fact that we can see? But when it comes to photography, what is a benefit of natural light? Yes? Well, that's true with artificial light too, though. Yeah. Yes? It could be less bright, but it might not be. Okay? So that's kind of that's something you have to think about. So natural light, okay, is very common, okay? When you take pictures with just regular sunlight coming through a window or outside, people sort of recognize that in a photograph as a very natural way of seeing a shape and seeing a setting, okay? That's a pro, okay? Now, there's a big con to natural light that we have to, oh, yes?
You can't control it?
Yes. So, it's uncontrollable. And boy, if you can control natural light, let me know. The other thing with natural light that's a pro is it's basically always available. It's always on. Okay. You said, what about nighttime? Well, yeah, okay, yeah, that's true. We're on a real cloudy day here in Oregon. Well, okay, it's not bright, but there's still light that you can work with as a photographer. So the biggest con is it's uncontrollable. And so if you decide to be a photographer at like a wedding venue, you might run into some issues related to weather and natural light. You might not, okay? But you have to be aware of the weather and what is going to happen for that. Kind of outside event would be something, okay? Artificial light. Okay, what is a pro for artificial light? Yes? It's totally controllable. Okay? What would be another pro, or maybe a con of artificial light? So the controllable thing is pretty broad, right? But for artificial light, you can choose what color you want the light to be, right? And you can, yes? You got to go? Already? Okay. Let's do a PR today, huh? All right. Yes. Were you going to say something? Oh, darn it. Okay. And so the advantage to being controllable is you have variety that you can establish. V-A-R-I-E-T-Y. All right, with intensity and with color and with placement, with angle, which we did a little bit with our last project. And so that's really kind of cool. What would be a con or a downside? Okay, that's true. Not always available. Oops, not always available. And it's not, of course you're not planning for this, but it's not always on. There are times when you are doing a shoot and the battery goes dead, or the light burns out, or something like that. The electricity goes out, and it's like, oh, jeez. Is there any other, presumably con? Yes. You have to pay for it. In some fashion, you do. Either you buy it or you rent it. I know a professional photographer who's doing very well. Thank you very much. Team photographer for the Timbers, and he does team photography for the Hillsborough Hops and the Thorns and just all over the place. He rents his equipment when it has lighting because he gets the latest. He doesn't have to buy it. It's not going to get old, and it's a business expense, and that's just the way he does it. But it still does cost. Okay, so there is money involved. The sun is free. It's just not always available. Okay. Or it is, but it's not always controllable. What would be something else about artificial lighting? Okay, yeah, right? This is the stuff that takes the time, okay? Like anything that you plan on doing, any kind of project you plan on doing, setting up and cleaning up take more time, many times, than the actual project itself, right? So one of the cons might be the setup. You have to make sure that the lights are right, they're in the right place, the right angle, the right intensity, yada, 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 all that stuff, right? And that is where the skill of the photographer, that's like 60% of the skill of the photographer, figuring out how to handle the setting of where the photo is being taken, okay? Anything else about lighting that we need to be conscious of? Any pros or cons? I can't think of any. If you think of one, go ahead and share it. Okay, now, the next thing, I'm not going to talk too much about props other than to say I've got lots, okay? All these trays over here have stuff in them, anything from Barbie dolls and mannequins and Legos and glasses and trains, little toy train. I mean, I just got all kinds of stuff. And then the tall cabinet over here on the left has bigger props, like the mannequin heads and the skeletons and some other, a lot of different colors of glass bottles and trays and stuff. And so there's a lot of things to consider to use that I have available in the room. Okay, don't think we're going to get to too much of that with this, but something that you have to consider. Okay, cool. So the last thing that we want to talk about, I believe, so we're going to review the exposure triangle settings, the exposure settings. Okay. Does anybody remember one of the three exposure settings? Shutter speed. Okay. And that is, what is shutter speed? What does that do?
How long the shutter is exposed?
How long? Okay. It's the amount of time that's allowed to come in to hit the sensor. You were close. Well, I know you're on the right track. But just a little bit of clarification there. So you're absolutely right. The shutter opens up so light can come in and hit the sensor. What is the setting to adjust the sensor? suppose. Sensor sensitivity. Anybody remember what it's called? Nope, but that's the next one. ISO. And then aperture. Okay? So ISO is the sensitivity of the sensor, meaning how much light is needed for the image to be captured by the sensor. And as you've experienced with the last project, it really depends on a lot of different variables. It depends on how much light is able to come through the aperture. It also depends on how long the shutter is out of the way. And it depends on how sensitive that setting is. The higher the number, the more sensitive, the less light. The lower the number, the more light is needed because it's less sensitive. Hey, guys, guess what you're supposed to be doing? I don't care. And please put that away. Oh, it's yours. Okay, so where's your notes? Yes. Yes. Okay, watch out, let me try. Do you want to pass or not? You're just going to go for it? I'd hate for you to not come back. Oh, look at this. It was such a great idea when I did it. There we go. Okay, so we're going to have 6 different stations, okay? But I call them, I was trying to figure out what to call these, and I call them stations, but also I'm going to call it a shoot, all right? So, does anybody know what a photo shoot is? Yes? Say the beginning part again.
A controlled series of pictures or images.
Okay, yeah. So we talk about control, all right, as best as we can. So it is, I'm going to kind of clarify that a little bit. I'm going to call it a controlled, that's 2 L's, opportunity to take a series of photos. I apologize for those of you who this is kind of in the way of photos. So as a photographer, you go on a shoot, you're thinking about your subject matter, you're thinking about your setting, you're thinking about your lighting, you're thinking about the props, you're thinking about all that stuff. And you're going to set it up for a specific period of time in a particular location. And you're going to capture as many photographs as you feel you need for you to get some good pictures. Okay. Now, I never really talked much about how many pictures to take to get good pictures, right? And some photographers will tell you that you need to take a lot of pictures to get just a few good ones. Okay. Ansel Adams was a premier American photographer, took a lot of photographs of national parks in the western half of the United States in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And he would take probably 3,000 photos a day or a year because he had the big old camera with the single piece of film. So every photograph he took, you know, he had to put the film in, take the picture, take the film out, make sure it was all protected, the whole 9 yards. And he said if he got 150 photos in the course of a year that he liked, that was a good year. So it really is a matter of doing your best to capture what you want to capture, but then also realizing that, you know, some things might not turn out the way you want it to, okay? So a shoot is that opportunity that a photographer has to take a series of photos of a particular subject, okay? Now, we're going to have, let me do this in a, oh, I like all these colors. I finally got all my colors. Okay, so we're going to do a series of shoots. We're going to do a water balloon burst. Because we want to capture the water coming out of the balloon, not just a balloon full of water, right? So we're going to try and capture it at that moment where the balloon is bursting, okay? We are going to do, I got to have my list again, let's see here. Oh, toy car rolling down a ramp. We are going to do bubbles. There we are. Okay. We're going to do ink and water. We are going to do, fruit splashing. And lastly, we're going to do fall leaves. Now, if I get so inspired, leaves falling. Between now and when we're at the days of taking photographs, I might throw in something different. I don't know, but I think these are pretty good. Okay. Fruit splashing, right? So I have a shallow inflatable pool kind of a thing area, fill it with a little bit of water. You kind of slide fruit in there and see the splash, and you're trying to capture the splash. Now it's a little dangerous for me because, right, there's water involved, and bubbles have soap involved, and that's not a good combination for safety. But we're going to risk it, okay? And if Friday is warm enough, which it might be, we might just head out to the courtyard over here and do our water balloon bursting time out there. I hope so. I really do. It's fun out there. Okay, so what I need you guys, I want us to figure out here is what shutter setting, what exposure setting is going to be a good priority for each of those 6 stations. Okay, so which one do you think you need to pay attention to the most to get the best shot out of each of those? Yes?
Shutter speed
For all of them?
for a lot of them. Like
For a lot of them, maybe, yeah. So balloon burst, shutter speed. Yeah, why do you say that?
Because it has to be really, really fast in order to get the effect of it being blurry or mistime.
Right, so when the balloon bursts and the water starts coming out, it's going very quickly, very quickly. So your shutter speed has to be extremely fast to kind of freeze the action, as they say, right? Now you're also going to have a particular level of ISO and a particular aperture. Now, when you're thinking aperture, aperture is f-stop, so you think focus. We know, you know how far away you're going to be from the water balloon. So you might be able to choose an aperture where you get just the balloon and maybe the background's a little blurry. Which one's going to be the best priority for bubbles?
Aperture,
Potentially, but why do you say aperture?
because you need it in a good focus to capture the bubble.
So what's a quality of bubbles that makes it difficult to photograph? They're transparent. Yeah. And they float. They do. They float a lot, but they don't float a lot. I mean, they kind of go in one particular direction. Okay. Okay. Ink and water. And the picture that's on the project page is ink and water. Okay. So you have a glass container, clear water. You drip mostly food coloring, but also some ink, and it's going to disperse around the water. So what do you think would be the best priority for this one? That's a tough one. ISO is going to be really important, but I'm going to say aperture, but we'll go ahead and put ISO as well. Now, why did you say ISO? Okay, fair enough. That's good. And all of the 3 are going to come into play. Okay. Fruit splashing in a little pool of water. What would be the priority? Shutter speed, I agree. Shutter speed is probably going to help you out the best there. And then lastly, leaves falling to the ground. You think? I mean, you think. Shutter speed would be good, but ISO actually is going to help you out a lot on this one as well. Okay? Cool. So, So when we come back on Friday, and for those of you who may have a camera that you want to use and you want to bring it with you, Friday would be a good day to do that. We'll have some areas. You will probably have some setting up to do to get that area ready. I will have a couple of locations for shoots in the studio. I've got the nice long counter over here, the big table. I got a table back over there. So we will make sure, as best as we can, that no water or other debris is going to get on the computers. And it is a good idea to work in groups because managing the lighting, managing all of the props and everything else is going to be something that is going to take a little bit of time, and the more people that are working together, the faster that's going to go. I'm anticipating that you'll get maybe 2, maybe beginning 3 stations done in one class period. So we're going to do this for a couple of days, okay? And then the same idea that we did for the last projects as far as organizing the photos and then coming up with some final Photoshop documents, then we'll wrap it up on that. Any questions at this point? Okay, cool. Now for the rest of the period, I'm going to show you a couple of videos of photographers who use lighting and other things. And it's more about lighting than anything else, but it will give you ideas of how to set up settings. And if you want to Google image search any of those ideas of